car fans, welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Revell, and this week's build shouldn't need any introduction here. This is a 64 Ford Thunderbolt. Now this is a purpose-built drag car that Ford had commissioned Dearborn Steel and Tubing to help build for them, as they did modifications like this to some race cars and everything. So Ford had contacted them and commissioned them to build these, and 100 were built. They took a Fairlane 500 and stripped it down, took out the 289 and stuffed in the 427 high riser engine here. And this is a center oiler, as the side oiler was not available just yet. They haven't moved on to that. And but they did a ton of things to this thing. The front suspension was modified. The rear suspension was heavily modified. The carpet was removed and a rubber mat was put in. This was done all for racing. The lightweight van seats were put in the front. And also to lighten it up, the hood was fiberglass. The fenders were fiberglass, not aluminum. Aluminum was expensive and kind of exotic, but Ford wasn't doing that, even though Mopar did. The front bumper was initially fiberglass, which was kind of deemed that they couldn't do that, so they were replaced by aluminum ones, and later ones were built with aluminum ones. I understand that the rear bumper stayed the chrome rear bumper, steel chrome rear bumper. That was on purpose, as you know, it helped the thing hook in the drag race. But they did a lot of things to save weight. And Ford wasn't doing so well with the lightweight Galaxies, as they were still a bigger, heavier car, and they were getting beat. The Mopars were just killing them. And that's one of the things I really like about this particular car is, you know, Ford, when they came out with this thing, it just dominated the tracks. It was just killing it. And ironically for me, I didn't know what a Thunderbolt was when this model kit came out. So for me, it was quite a learning experience in finding out what this was. At first, when I saw the model kits, they were fun, cool cars. But the specific car, finding out more about it was even more interesting. And like this car, they were done in a few batches here. Now, I said 100 were built, but the first batch were 11 cars, and they were all vintage burgundy, and 10 of them were 4-speeds, and one of them was an automatic. I'm not sure who got the automatic. Those kind of interest me, as I do want to build one of these as an automatic. But in this particular car, the only really strong automatic that they had was the Lincoln automatic, and it had a special bell housing made to adapt this Lincoln motor to the Ford FE motor, as it did not come behind that motor from the stock. It went behind MEL motors, Mercury Edge Lincoln motors. So it was not designed to fit behind this, and it was heavily modified. The kickdown was removed, and some things were done to it to make it competitive. However, it wasn't. They blew up. They had some problems with them. The 4-speeds were much faster. So of the first 11 cars that were in vintage burgundy, like I said, 10 were manuals and one was an automatic. The next batch of 29 cars were all white, and a good chunk of them were automatic. And then the last batch was another 50 cars in all white. And same thing, a good chunk of them automatic. Matter of fact, in the final production, 59 of them were automatics and 41 were manuals. So it's kind of shocking, but the Thunderbolts made their legend as manual trannies, and most of them were converted to manual if they were automatic. Some were raced as automatic, but eventually got converted to a 4-speed. Some cars were lost to time. This is one of them. The Phil Bonner car, this was one of the initial 11 cars, and it's in this vintage burgundy. So when it comes to this one, there were some unique things that some of the very first cars had. One of them was a cloverleaf hood. The teardrop hoods came almost immediately after, but it had this ugly cloverleaf hood on it. So some of the earliest pictures of this car racing at the first races had that cloverleaf hood. It also was one of the very few that had a fiberglass front bumper, which was deemed not legal, so they had to remove it, and they put an aluminum one on there. It looked like a bumper, but it still really wasn't a bumper, being made out of aluminum, and it could easily be damaged. But it was meant for racing only. The car did eventually get the teardrop hood as well. But Phil Bonner, he was a very successful match racer, and Ford wanted to make sure he got one of these. He was also racing a couple of AFX Falcons. He was a busy guy. So the story with this car is, he match raced it and he won quite a bit. But one of the times he left it back at the shop with the mechanics and he went racing the AFX Falcons. And supposedly one of those mechanics, or they took it out drag racing and they weren't supposed to, and they ended up wrecking it and rolling it, and I guess totaled it. So this one was lost to time a long time ago, and supposedly he kind of got a replacement, but he ended up getting a hardtop body one that had a NASCAR motor in it, and it was set up more for circle track racing than this. But that was his replacement, and his car was lost to time. But it was one of the first vintage burgundy cars. Now, one of the things I kind of understand, all of the cars got the champagne gold interiors, and all of them got back seats and no roll bars. Roll bars could be added later in later racing, but from the initial batch or the initial setup, they did not. Now, the model kit does have a lot of the suspension and accuracy parts to it, and it's got the single exhaust there. But one of the secrets, this is what I understand. It's not really written in stone that it's true, but I understand that one of the giveaways, the burgundy cars had the white trim inside these moldings here, and that the white cars had black trim in these moldings. So if you see these cars, you see some with black moldings and some with white inside the moldings. That's what I understand, but there's nothing really saying that that's what happened. And racers could have turned around and painted that as well if they wanted to when they painted the cars. But that's what I understand. The vintage burgundy cars came with the white moldings, and then the white cars came with the black moldings. People would often add wheels later, but they came with the steel wheels and the big slicks. But other than that, and some of the differences, they were all fairly well built the same and prepped, and just cool cars with one heck of a legacy, and I just really like them. Now, these model kits, let's pause for a moment. We'll take this outside so you can really see what this thing looks like in the sun. All right, and brought to you by BG's Model Workshop, here is the sunny portion of our Thunderbolt here in this vintage burgundy, which looks really good. It's interesting in the sunlight. It really is. Kind of a purple maroon here. I just like the way that looks. Bit on the dark side, but really like this color on this car. Really stands out here. On this Phil Bonner Thunderbolt. Really enjoy building these kits. They're kind of simple, somewhat simple kits to build. Decent in detail, coming from a kit from the 90s basically, or late 80s when these came out. But God, after building 4 of these, and I still like building them. I got 3 more that I plan to build, and just one good kit. So you see the aluminum painted bumper there versus the chrome, because the real ones were aluminum. I just give it a little bit of a different look there, and the gold painted wheels, which is how this particular car was. But being one of the first 11 in vintage burgundy, and understand actually the first batch, there was 10 of them, and they were all 4-speeds. Number 11 was the lone automatic that came later, but it was still part of the first batch, but it was the last one built of the first 10. But anyway, there she is in the sun there, looking really good. So let's go back inside. All right, now when it comes to these Revell kits, if you've been watching my channel for a while, this is number 4. It's still kind of an older build for me, but not very old, as this particular version came out as a Model King kit, and it came with 2 sets of decals. This one, the Phil Bonner set, and they gave you both this flag, the Confederate flag, and also the American flag. But I understand his race car actually had that on there, and because of current situations, I guess they added the American flag decal to it. I'm not really sure what went on there, but I understand he raced it with this flag. But that's he's from Georgia, and that's kind of the South and how that was anyway. But without getting too much further into that, The Model King version came with this and the little Georgia Shaker decals for the Hubert Platt car, which I built that as well. But since that kit came with 2 sets of decals, I went and picked up another regular Revell kit that had just generic decals and built both of those. So I built this at that time, which I think was about 2010, somewhere right around there. And I made sure I did it in full vintage burgundy. And this exhaust is supposed to be there. The rules required it. That's why it's got headers here and full race, but it's running the stock exhaust or exhaust system. It's not really stock. It's just there, but it represents a full exhaust system. But it's got all of the rear suspension tricks and stuff that they had done to it, and the front suspension. It's really, really cool. And then the motor, of course, I'll take that off of there. There's the high-rise 427. And I didn't glue this down so I could easily remove this. You could see the carbs and everything, which I really love this motor. It's a little tricky to build and a little finicky, but it goes together really nicely. I love this fiberglass hood, although you can see there, I cut it open and put a screen on the back side, make it look just a little bit more realistic. And I also did the same thing to the screens there instead of what Revell gives you or monogram. Those. So I put those in there, and I used a hole punch to punch those right out of the screen. Kind of messed it up, but it came out nice. And all of the Thunderbolts I did that. I also sanded the tires, smoothed them out. They weren't molded very well, but just give them a little bit more realistic. So I put them in a drill and spun them basically, and they came out pretty cool. And I really enjoy these. But like I said, I remember when the Hot Rod Series kits were coming out and seeing both of them. I really wanted the vintage burgundy gold top car, the Tasca Ford one, but could not find that. I mean, when I went looking for it, I couldn't find it. But the orange car was, and I built both of those. I looked for kits many years later, as you could find them on eBay, and they were all over the place. So I ended up building both of those, and then these 2 Model King ones. And the funny part is I have another one of the orange Revell Hot Rod Series ones. I'm throwing the box arts up here. I have another one of those, no box, but all the parts are there. And I got 2 more of the later not so great kits with the wrong, plain decals of the flames and stuff. I got 2 more of those, so I've got 3 more unbuilt ones to build. And like I said, I always wanted to do an automatic car. I don't know, of any real successful that stayed automatic car. I was kind of researching the history on that. I thought I had it in the 2 Bob Ford Thunderbolts that were raced. There was the gold with the black roof car, which I understood was a 4-speed car, and then the all yellow car, which I think is Stinger 1, something like that. Thought that was the automatic car, but I had read Bob Ford had sponsored a 4-speed car and an automatic car. Well, that's true, but looking further into it and refreshing my memory, those 2 cars are actually the same car. It was painted gold with a black roof in '64 and then got painted yellow in '65. It's really the same car. And Bob Ford had actually sponsored 4 Thunderbolts. 2 of them with the Bob Ford name on them, and another one with a different name on it, but sponsored. The 4th one was a privateer's car that was mildly sponsored. So they were heavy in these and sponsored 4 cars, but don't really know much about the specifics about those 2 cars. But I did get the decals for those to build them. So I think I'll build both of those, even though I understand they're both 4-speed cars. And I think for fun, I'll build one of the other ones as just the plain white with the black moldings, automatic, pretty much as the guys would have picked it up right from Dearborn Steel and Tubing, before it was all lettered up. Like it's brand new, that's how you had to pick it up. Because all these racers, they had to pick them up. Ford didn't deliver them. But anyway, that's kind of enough on this one. So, all right, well, that'll complete this one. So you guys, I do appreciate you guys checking it out and all of your support of the channel and everything. So thank you for tuning in, and your comments and your likes, your subscriptions and everything. And you guys, you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next Saturday.